Good evening, and thank you for attending this debate this evening. The League of Women Voters of the Hamptons is pleased to be sponsoring this debate for the candidates running in the Independence Party primary election to determine their candidate for Southampton Town Supervisor. If you would please stand, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The debate this evening is between Alex Gregor and Jay Schneiderman. They are the two candidates running in the Independence Party primary election on June 25th to be the Independent Party candidate in the general election for Southampton Town Supervisor. Please note that you can only vote in the Independence Party primary election if you are registered in the Independence Party, although, of course, everyone who's registered can vote in the general election. I am Estelle Gelman. I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Hamptons, and I'll be moderating this debate. The other members of the League who have roles in the debate are as following. There's Kathy Peacock, who will be one of the questioners with Greg Wayner of the Press News Group. Jeannie Pavaromo will be the timer. Ann Sanford and Judy Samuelson will be vetting the questions. Ursula Lintz will be collecting questions. That's her raising her hand in the back there. Beverly Lapine and Eileen Mercer greeted you as you entered. Arlene Hinkemeyer was our publicity chair, and Barbara McClancy, who's chair of our Voter Services Committee, coordinated this event on behalf of the League. And of course, a very special thanks to the staff of the Rogers Memorial Library and to CTV, which will be recording this event to broadcast to the community. Let me just tell you that the League of Women Voters is a political but nonpartisan national organization. While we never endorse parties or candidates, we are involved in many issues affecting the community. Foremost among our goals is to educate voters, stimulate voter interest, and encourage voter participation. We are respected for sponsoring fair and impartial candidate debates such as this one, and for the educational materials we distribute on voting issues. If you're interested in learning more about the League or even joining us, please pick up information on the table by the door. Now, to move on to the ground rules for the debate. As I indicated before, Kathy Peacock and Greg Wayner of the Press News Group will be asking the questions. If you have a question you would like to have the candidates address, please submit your question to the League member circulating among the audience on one of the cards that have been distributed. Please note that questions must be addressed to both candidates, and there will be no questions posed directly by members of the audience to the candidates. The questions will be reviewed by the vetters. Questions are reviewed to make sure that they're legible, understandable, and are appropriate for this debate. It is not our goal to censor questions from the audience, but to determine which topics are of most interest to the audience. We will probably not be able to reach all submitted questions, so if you wish to have the candidates personally respond to your question, and they haven't had time to do it during the debate, please include your name and email address on the card, and we will see to it that the candidates receive the question. This debate will use a traditional format. The order of speaking has been determined by a toss of the coin, and Alex Gregor will be speaking first and will be the first to respond to the initial question. Jay Schneiderman will then be first to give his closing statement. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Each candidate will then have up to 3 minutes to respond to each question, and will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. In addition, each candidate has a red card. You can see them on the table there, that can be used 4 times to allow the candidate to speak for up to 2 minutes out of turn as a rebuttal to the response from the other candidate. If there is time, each candidate may also ask 1 question of his opponent, and the opponent will have 3 minutes to respond. The ground rules for the audience are as follows. We ask you not to applaud or vocalize approval or disapproval during the debate. We have very little time and very many questions, and this type of audience participation eats into the time available for the candidates. We ask you to submit as many questions as you can. The debate is to help you get to know the candidates and to give the candidates an opportunity to inform you the voters, of their positions on the issues important to the residents of the town. We will now begin the opening statements, and Alex Greger will begin.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex Greger. I'm a resident of East Quogue. I'm born and raised in the town of Southampton. First, I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Halsey, one of the independence members that helped me get on this primary race, so thank you. I'm not a politician. I got into it because of the Peconic Estuary program. We needed people to get involved. We didn't need politicians. I'm sick and tired of politics. It's ruining the nation, it's ruining the state, and it's ruining the town. I'm not a career politician, as my opponent is. I care. I've been with you for Hurricanes Irene, Sandy, many snowstorms, Snowstorm Nemo. I try to do the best I can with the budget that I have. I can't stand by and see the town deteriorate into a political cesspool. It's not good. People do not have faith. The taxes. We're being assessed out of the town. If we go away with one thing tonight, we need to get Mr. Schneiderman to get away from saying that he isn't raising taxes, as in one of his puff pieces, and he's spending more money on infrastructure. That is not correct. During the 2016 through 2019 budget years, Jay has increased spending $11.6 million at a 12.7% increase over that time. While our home values over the last 5 years have steadily decreased, the town's overall assessed validation has increased 17.3%. That's from $57.7 billion to $67.7 billion. The tax levy, what the town collects, has increased from $59 million
Time is up.
to $67 million.
Time is up.
13.5%.
Alex, time is up. Please sit. Jay?
They're holding up a stop sign there. You should recognize the stop sign, so, as the highway
30
superintendent.
seconds.
So first of all, to the League of Women Voters, thank you for hosting, to all who came out tonight. My name is Jay Schneiderman. I'm Southampton Town Supervisor. I'm in my second term. First, and 2 minutes isn't a lot. I won't even get into the numbers. We'll do that later. I am born here, too. I'm born down the road at Southampton Hospital. My mom, an immigrant from Hungary. My dad, a veteran, school teacher, veteran of 2 different wars, World War II and Korea. I was involved for many years in small business. I ran for supervisor East Hampton, won 2 terms. Went on to the Suffolk County Legislature, where I served for 6 consecutive terms. Toward the end, I served as deputy presiding officer, then was elected Southampton Town Supervisor. I'm in my second term. I think I've done a good job. A lot of independent entities have said so. Moody's has given the town a AAA credit rating. I'm happy that that was the same in East Hampton, where they moved it up to a AAA credit rating. The last independent audit, they found actually no reportable deficiencies throughout the town. In fact, they couldn't even find a place where they could say there was room for improvement. I've never seen a response like that, so that's from an independent auditing agency. I've won a number of awards for the town or for the entity I was serving. On this Friday, I'm picking up an award from Vision Long Island for the work the town did on the accessory apartment law, the recent changes there. It's the second award I've gotten from that organization. Several years ago for the Sunday bus program. I worked very hard in getting the county buses running on Sundays. Have a long list of accomplishments. Keeping taxes low, and we can debate that, but I have not raised the tax rate in all my years of service. That's 20 years now in a row. Many open space, thousands of acres of open space, farmland, and woodlands, and I'm getting the stop sign now too, so we'll talk more later. Thank you.
Okay, may we have the first question?
Can the inventory of affordable housing be increased in any other way than by large new housing projects? And if so, how do you address the NIMBY attitude on affordable housing opportunities?
Alex, you go first.
Thank you very much. Well, there's some things that can be done. We can have the owner rental. I'm not in favor so much of having rentals or a second apartment in a housing place if it isn't occupied by the owner, so we can take care of it. The NIMBYs are everywhere. Anything that we do, there's always somebody that's opposed to it. And what I try to do is do what's best for the town and the overall population. I don't worry about how it affects my standing in the public or what they perceive when they come out and vote. I'm a blue-collar guy, I'm a regular person, and I will try to do my best to increase the inventory. But with that, I'm not that impressed by having the town involved in housing. When the town starts competing against private sector, it's a problem, because then there's pork with the contracts, and then there is a campaign contributions, and the whole thing gets blurred. Government should stay out of the private sector. But when you can do some zoning, create some apartments, I'm for that. Sometimes we need, in downtown areas where it's walkable, that's the thing. If you're near a downtown area, that's some of the places where you need to increase the density. That's what all the studies been saying. And yes, there's been some talk over by the old Gospel Church off of 39. We haven't seen an application come in yet, but we should consider it. People are putting their children to school, paying high school taxes. These kids are getting out of school, and then they have to move away because there's no place for them to live. We need to try to foster a start for people. We can't chase our future away. Thank you.
Jay?
So, in many ways, we're victims of our own success. We've done a great job preserving our area, our small town way of life, and in it, we've seen property values go up and up and up. We've controlled density to the best we can. And as things get more expensive for our workforce, they struggle to figure out ways to live in our community. Many have had to leave, and it's a tragedy. And we see it in the traffic as the workforce commutes in. We see it in code enforcement as people live in basements in squalid conditions sometimes, just to try to live and work in our community. We have looked to try to make the numbers work at apartment type of projects where we can concentrate density. Sandy Hollow was one that predated me, but it's almost finished now. Spion Commons is one that I worked on very closely, and there we did get quite a bit of resistance initially, but working with that community, we ended up finally getting tremendous amount of support. And that project, as it's being built, I'm getting a lot of people telling me how nice it is. In terms of finding other ways than concentrating density, the accessory apartment law, which I mentioned that the town is getting an award for on Friday, does exactly that. It says, let's use the existing inventory and let's find a way for people to build apartments within homes. That could help, let's say, a senior citizen. Kids maybe have moved out, gone to college, lived in other areas. Maybe that house is large enough to build out an affordable apartment. And we think that program is going to work really well. And we've limited it to certain areas, the lowest density areas in the town, because we recognize really that east of the canal is where we have it's the least affordable area and where we need to create affordable housing the most. So We're hoping that this will do it. To buffer any density increases, we're retiring sanitary credits from preserved land so that that will never be used to create additional density. So I think it's a good program. We already have a number of people who are taking advantage of that program. And every little bit helps. We need a lot. This is a crisis in the community, the lack of affordability. And it's something that I've been working on for years and I think making a difference on.
Okay. Next question?
Traffic's obviously an issue on County Road 39. What's the best way to address the traffic congestion?
Jay, you go first this time.
Well, one really good way to address the traffic congestion is for the workforce to take the train. Right, so we now have a train, thanks to Assemblyman Fred Thiel, who worked with the Long Island Railroad in the town. 2 trains in the morning, Spionk and Hampton Bays heading out to Amagansett and Montauk, and we're seeing the ridership grow every day as the traffic gets worse. It's very affordable, and the town is very involved in getting people from the train stations to their employment. So that's a great way to reduce traffic, using public transportation. Other ways, there's not a lot we can do. A lot of people need cars. It's tough to get around without a car. Some people in the trades need equipment. We can look at timing. That's possible, the timing of the traffic signals to maybe improve that. I was involved, as you know, with the widening of County Road 39. We used to just have 1 lane. Could you imagine today if we still just had 1 lane heading out here? It's already backed up, right? It's backed up sometimes to West Hampton in the morning. So there's no silver bullet, but people do, they're still coming. They love it out here. We're gonna have to live with the traffic. It's part of, you're adjusting to out here. In other areas you see it too. We'll never have no traffic, but the more we can do bike lanes, the more we can do local shuttles, more we can do public transportation. I don't want to see widening all over the place because I think that changes the rural character. I think that obviously County Road 39 made sense, but widening, adding additional lanes beyond that point, I don't think makes sense. But I think those are some of the things. Certainly the train is making a difference, and there's no perfect solution.
The trade parade needs trucks. It's kind of a runaway overdevelopment that's going on with all the McMansions that are going on east of the canal. Trade parade isn't going to go on the train. People that do work in the area. I've been to Spionk several times and watched the train pull away with no one in it. It is a good step. People are in love with their cars, but that's how it is out here on the island. I disagree. I think making 2 lanes on County Road 39, the legislator at the time said by the time it was going to be built, it's obsolete. What we created with County Road 39 is a danger zone. It's a racetrack. You take your life in your hands when you go on that. Sometimes you have to cross 3 lanes of traffic that is not signalized. That's no good. We need to try to put some traffic lights up so the people that live along County Road 39 can pull out. What's happening on County Road 39 is there's no pulses in the traffic. It's a constant flow, and for some reason, we human beings, when we get in our cars, we lose all kind of self-respect for the other motorists. I've seen it down there. I unfortunately have to go to the accidents with the insurance companies and the lawyers. Even though it's a county road, I end up having to go. So I disagree. If it was 1 lane, it would discourage some of the up west contractors for coming out here and doing the work. Because the builders want the cheapest work that they can get. It's taking work away from the local contractors. You don't see the little contractors anymore. They're the big companies. These big developers are setting the price and telling the contractor what they're willing to pay for a service. So I'm very concerned about the people that live along County Road 39. It's inevitable that we will have traffic lights. Try pulling out of Tuckahoe Lane onto County Road 39 and go east or go west. Try to pull out of St. Andrews Road where it's not signalized. It's an accident waiting to happen. It's unfortunate. That's what we need to do. We need to employ engineering controls to try to calm people down and create that pulse in the traffic so people can come out. If it's bumper to bumper, if the light goes off, it's not going to make a big deal because there's not a whole lot of people pulling out of these roads. But yet, they're taking their life in their hands, and they need to be something done. There was talk about making an access road from Greenfield or to Hill Station Road. But pulling out of Hill Station Road is no bargain in itself.
There's a large Latino population that's largely absent from the political process. How would you bring that community into full participation in civic life?
Alex, you go first on this.
I believe the Latinos are an emerging population. There's certainly a strong population that's underground, but there's still a vibrant population that is getting involved. And in the future, it's written, you will be seeing elected officials that are Latino. They're people just like anybody else that want to try to have another chance. If there wasn't any work, there probably wouldn't be a lot of day laborers around. But we need to try to get people registered. We gotta get people involved. That's what I was saying earlier. The politics is turning people off. A lot of people think they can't make a difference. Or if they do and they want to run for an elective office and they don't have the blessing of the party leaders and they collect a petition, then they take them to court and knock them off the ballot. And some people call that protecting democracy. I think that's bull. I think that's just protecting the political leaders that just want to perpetuate their own candidates. We need a choice. And so getting the Latinos involved would be a good thing. I see them and talk with them all the time. My wife speaks Spanish. People want to be free. They want to live in peace. They're escaping danger, crime, drugs, violence. I was in Mexico City, and there's a whole vibrant community, affluent, wealthy, beyond uber rich, educated. They want nothing to do with America. They're happy. They have their piece of the world. It's the same anywhere else in the world. It's the people that are yearning to be free, and that's what this country stands for. It's people that are in fear and want to try to do something better. And that's what we need to do. So I believe it's inevitable. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Certainly the Latino population has increased. We have seen several schools where I think the majority of the kids now are Latino. It's a really, we're one community. It's a culturally diverse community. And we have some great advocacy organizations, groups like HOLA, groups like Sepa Mujer. I was recently at their Cultural Diversity Day out in Hampton Bays at St. Rosalie, and it was really a wonderful event. I think it's really important that the supervisor has an open door and invites everybody into the conversation, into the dialogue. Well, we have an anti-bias task force that they do a great job in terms of outreach. Our police department, under the leadership of Police Chief Skrnicki, works very closely with Minerva Perez from OLA, trying to address issues to make sure people feel comfortable reporting crimes, that they know they're not going to be, rounded up or deported. We have, we need open lines of communication with our entire community, and I think we have made significant strides in that area. So we have brought a number of people into various boards, appointed boards, trying to make sure that the Latino community is reflected in town government. So we're doing our best to be as inclusive as possible.
Next question.
Okay, so this is one from the audience. What steps will you take to boost jobs and economic well-being among the Shinnecock?
Jay, go first.
Great question. We're very fortunate to have within the town a nation, the Shinnecock Nation. Not a lot of towns can say they have a nation within the town. So we have a very proud tradition with the Shinnecocks that date back long before the town of Southampton. And They have talked about economic development. They own the reservation, which I think is 800 or so acres. They own the Westwood property, which is roughly another 80 acres in Hampton Bays. Through the years, they've talked about all kinds of ideas, from aquaculture ideas, solar energy ideas. They've talked about gas stations along Sunrise Highway with convenience stores. They've talked about gaming in the past. That was pretty controversial, though they've also talked about bingo halls. They have talked about hotels and spas, and I think there's tremendous things that they can do, particularly environmental things that they can do to improve the conditions of the people at the reservation. Many of the people are living below the poverty level. As you know, I'm sure, you probably know that I wasn't pleased when they decided to build the electronic billboards. I thought they were out of character, and I thought they were potentially dangerous. And I was hoping for other economic development ideas that I could really get behind and support. You know, we have seen impacts in the traffic because of those billboards. So that's unfortunate, but you know, I do want to work with the Shinnecock Nation. I do want to see things improve. And they deserve it. History has not been particularly kind, you know, since colonialism. And I think that there's a lot that we can do together that's beneficial, both for creating jobs. I'll give you an example. So the hotel idea, hotel and spa, you know, that creates a lot of jobs. It creates people who may spend money at local restaurants and local shops. People learn a trade. You know, the billboards, I don't know that it employs anybody. And at least, you know, there's certain economic development ideas that would not only be beneficial to the Shinnecock Nation, they'd also be beneficial for the community at large. Tax-free gasoline. Tax-free gasoline, they can sell gas without tax. That's like 70 cents cheaper on a gallon. There's a lot of people in this community that would benefit from having significantly lower gas. They'd make a ton of money, and we'd save a ton of money. I think that's all very positive. So again, my door is open. I think the billboards have set, unfortunately, you know, a negative tone, but I think we'll get past this. And right now their battle on the billboards is between the state and the Shinnecocks, because the state attorney general has issued a restraining order on the operation of those billboards. Thank you.
My opponent says one thing and does another. The billboards, he knew about them almost a year ago and didn't take the Shinnecock seriously. I can't say I'm super familiar with the Shinnecocks. I've lived near their Westwood property in Hampton Bays for most of my life. I've had friends that are in the Shinnecock Nation, and I also had employees from the Shinnecock Nation. They're surrounded by great wealth, and they have been treated poorly. You should have kept on going and trying to say, oh, I just will fight you on this. It's inevitable that someday, somewhere, they will have a casino. As I travel the state, as a member of the State Highway Association, I see the other nations, state tribes, and that's what they want to do, is to have some gaming facility or a hotel or something like that. That's what they, doesn't matter what we think, it's what they perceive as their future. You just continue going down Hill Street and you see those mega mansions. And if you continue to go down Hill Street, notice the closed circuit camera that stares into Eastgate Road and records them. You don't think that made them very happy, did you? Not many people are talking about that. It's unfair. There are several closed circuit TVs that monitor the activity on Montauk Highway and Hill Street for the Shinnecocks. When you get this adversarial position, there isn't much you can do. We need to continue to work with them and listen to them. Let them tell us. They've been told by the white man for a long time what to do or to step back. They will have developed their own plan and their own path. And it may be in conflict with us, but they're our neighbors. And I'm willing to sit down and work with them. And I do talk to them on a regular basis, different members. I do business at the shops. I don't smoke cigarettes, but I go and buy gum or I get an egg sandwich and that. Actually, I give them some of the feathers from my parrot. I just want to try to help preserve the culture and preserve dialogue. It has to start at a simple level. You gotta understand, they see that First Neck, Halsey Neck, Captain's Neck, that wealth. They want their piece of pie, and it's not for us to tell them what to do. We want to encourage them to give us ideas and welcome them, the Westwood property. In fact, my parents' house was condemned on Sunrise Highway, just a half a mile west of where the billboards are. Now, is it something that I would put up? No. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the Shinnecocks think, and we need to encourage dialogue.
How can town property taxes be controlled when properties' values keep increasing based on full valuation?
Okay, Alex, you go first.
Thank you very much for that. You hear my opponent talk about different things, the tax rate and taxes. Well, as I told you, it went up 11.6 million. That's a lot of money. That's pushing people out. It's his own numbers. He can look at it. We choose what we want to do with the assessment. You don't wait for a fire and then come up with an idea. First, you had a work session saying your assessments went up 10%, and then after getting beat over the head 2 weeks later, he says he's going to freeze it. So what I simply say is, why don't we set it at 75% of the assessed value and keep it that way, and then as new houses come online, assess them then, or when there's major renovation, to reassess them. And that will take away. My little house in East Quogue, single-story corner lot, has gone up the last 3 years in a row, and we only painted the house. I don't understand it. Now, not necessarily assessment makes your taxes go up, but when your assessment rate goes up, most of the time your school taxes go up. And this is what I'm saying. It's pushing people out. It's gentrification by reassessment. The values are going down on houses. There's a couple of reasons. The federal tax rate, you can only take out $10,000, not $50,000 and $60,000. So you see some of the prices of the McMansions are going down. We need to stop it. Confidence. Confidence. Don't wait for there's a fire. See what's going on. How long have you been here? 5 years? You should have known. Why? 3.5 years. Why let it go? Have the vision. See it. Take care of the regular people. Thank you.
Jay?
So, the town is, Southampton is one of only 2 towns that does full value assessment. The other one is Shelter Island, a very small town. I didn't start this program. This has been going on for years. I think it, started quite some time ago, and it was pretty controversial that first year when they chose to fully value everything at fair market. And in one way, it's fair that basically you're going to pay your share of property taxes based on the value of your home in relationship to the value of everybody else's home. If your home's worth a little more, you're going to pay a little bit more. And we go around every year, our assessment office, and they determine what the value of your home is. And property values have been going up. That's not the only thing that's made the assessment base grow, though. About half of the growth is new construction. Pools, addition, and honestly, people who build tear down a small house and build a bigger house, they know their property taxes are going up. The people who have been getting caught up in this is the people who've done nothing to their house. And maybe it's becoming really desirable for summer homes, and the property values in that neighborhood is going up by 25% a year. And their incomes aren't going up by 25% a year. Maybe they're on a fixed income. And I've been struggling with this for a while, thinking this isn't a great system. There's got to be a way to protect senior citizens who are on fixed incomes, people who are basically homesteaders, people who live here for most of the year, to not get driven out. And we were able to come up with a way this year to freeze everybody. We're freezing all those property valuations. You don't build on your house, improve your house we're not going to relook at your assessment for the next 2 years. I'm hoping in that 2-year window, we figure out a way to make that permanent. That if you are a senior living in this community, we will not reassess your value no matter what until that property is transferred, until you sell it. Then it'll be adjusted to fair market value, but you'll at least know, that you are going to pay the same, that you're going to be taxed at the same assessment as you had been. I think that's really an important step. So I think that's all I have to say on the assessment issue.
Rick Card, Lynn, 2 minutes.
You let the fire run away. My assessment, I can't sell my house for what the assessed value is. And if I was to sell it, I certainly couldn't replace what I have now for that dollar amount. Need to do it. Riverhead hasn't done a reassessment in about 40 years. I think the town of East Hampton probably been 2002. Why are we waiting till there's a crisis? His phone was ringing off the wall, and he's like, I got to do something. That's not how I want to run the ship. I'd like to have people. He wants to take a two-year freeze. I think I gave you a situation. Why don't we do it at 75%? Freeze it at that. As new houses come online, we reassess them. If they do a major rebuild, they get reassessed then. We have to stop the nonsense. These are ways that he's spending more money. As I told you, my numbers don't lie. He's increased spending. He's got to stop that. He goes back and forth from the tax rate to taxes. He's increased the taxes. Thank you.
I'm going to use a red card too.
Good for you.
Okay, 2 minutes.
I've looked at the actual spending in your department too. 6% 1 year increase, 2 years ago, last year another 6%. So you have more available funds in your department too. So look, things go up. I'm not saying spending went down. Spending didn't go down. Inflation was roughly 2%. We had health insurance costs go up by 8 or 9%. People demand certain services. Population grows. We can control spending. The tax rate is the number we multiply against your value to determine how much taxes we're going to collect. If your value goes up, I try to lower that tax rate. So your property taxes don't go up very much. The tax rate has been going down. If there's new construction, that's good. That's good for you because those people are picking up a bigger slice of that pie. I hope that answers some of that.
Okay.
One of the things he's been saying is that he hasn't been raising taxes and that he's been spending more on infrastructure. That's incorrect. What I have here is from my last year budget presentation to the town board. We've been getting about the same amount of money. My predecessor got more. But what's happening, we're depending more on state aid. 2012, 2011, 2010, it ranged between 20 and 18%. Now we're up to 58 and 49% to make up that same number. We can't always count on the state aid. Governor Cuomo this year did not give the state severe winter money. We had a minor winter, but you know what? The roads got racked by the rain and the freeze and the thaw. The sub-base got wet and it's cracking. It was worse than if it snowed, because if it's cold all the time, the roads don't heave. But when we get these torrential rainstorms, and then we get a freeze, and then it gets warm again, that's a bad thing. So he's saying he's giving more for the roads. That's incorrect. There it is if you want to see it at the end. 18%. Now, since 2015, we've gone up 39, 58, 49%. State aid making up the same money. So, let's stop playing games. Thank you.
I guess I'll have to respond to. So I guess he's saying if we get more money from the state, we should also take more money from the taxpayers, right? So you have had more money to spend, and I think that's important. When I look at the East End towns, in terms of the cost per mile to maintain roads. We are well above the average, about 40% above the average in terms of what we pay per mile. We are more than East Hampton, we are more than Riverhead, and significantly more than Brookhaven on a per mile cost. So, you know, when he criticizes me, you're gonna have to take some criticism back in terms of how your department is managed, because, you know, when your available funds to spend on contracts go up by 6% every year, I gave $1 million, the town gave you for Dune Road, a significant increase in capital there. You know, I haven't seen you, when we do the budgets, and I propose my budget, the town board, you know, we hold budget hearings, I haven't seen you come and say, increase my budget. I don't like what you've programmed for me. So, you know, that's,
I submitted, Jay.
well, if you don't get everything you want, you should come and tell the town board that I need more.
Year after year, Jay.
Okay.
Year after year.
Next question, please.
Shifting gears. So another question from the audience. What should the town be doing to address the heroin and opioid problem facing our youth?
And Jay, you go first.
I appreciate the question. So, yeah, this community was rocked 2 years ago when we had 19 deaths, fatal overdoses from heroin, largely from fentanyl in heroin. Drew Scott, a community member from West Hampton, who's known from his days at News 12, his granddaughter was one of those victims, and we realized we had to do something. And so we put together a task force, I think over 40 members. We started working with law enforcement to try to interrupt the supply. Took about 300 bags of heroin off the streets, by the way. We worked with the schools, helping, you know, provide education to kids to make sure that they don't start down this path. We started working with people who were addicted already, getting them into counseling services, and the support that they need. And we had a lot of mental health professionals and medical professionals involved. Really, like all aspects of the community. We held many forums. We held youth forums. We held forums for parents. We're still doing that. We're still very active on this issue. We saw our opioid deaths fall the next year to 6 deaths, from 19 to 6. Significant, I think a 60% reduction in opioid deaths. And we actually held a vigil out in Good Ground Park, and we allowed a place for people to come and sort of grieve collectively together. It was very moving. We then, in the current year, we have had 1 opioid death. It's 1 too many. But we do believe we're moving very much in the right direction. We're hoping that some of these efforts, are paying off, that people are getting the help that they need. We have Narcan, or naloxone, like everywhere. Every police car has it, every ambulance has it. A lot of the users have Narcan now, so it's saving an awful lot of lives. And the police chief, Chief Stranicki, has been very involved. The entire town board, several of the members are here tonight. Everybody has been deeply engaged in this issue to try to prevent that next death. And it's a tragedy. It's very hard, particularly when a young person loses their life to something so preventable. So I'm going to keep up my efforts to reduce opioid deaths.
There's so many choices out there for young people. Society is, for the lack of better word, as we get more wealthy, sometimes our children fall through the cracks. I think we definitely have to go after the drug companies and the doctors that are putting this stuff on the road. We need to invest more in mental health. We don't need to put people in jail. We need to help talk to them. They need to have professional psychiatric help and medication. That can make a big difference. We need to encourage parents to be parents, not to be kids and have kids. It's very difficult. Peer pressure. In our generation, it was a different ballgame. Now, the stuff is so potent. The drug companies are ruthless. The doctors that give this stuff out. But there has to be a mental health issue. Yes, continuing education, just like safety, has to continue. And it's going to be hard. Because people fall and they have no hope. So they get high, and they get higher. and then something terrible happens. You just can't keep throwing people in jail. That's what I see a lot, especially in the cities. It's terrible. It's going to take a long time, and it has to be a commitment. A lot of it is parents trying to help their kids, talk to them. You know, I've seen kids die on the roads. Sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it isn't. But people get lost and they need to help, and they need to be found. They don't need to be thrown in jail. Yes, the dealers need to be arrested. We got to make sure we're not just picking on the minorities, that it's across the board. Rich kids like drugs. We need to change that culture. It's going to be something constant that we're going to have to do. It's very serious. I have a 28-year-old son. We're pretty lucky. We hope he gets a job someday when he gets out of graduate school. But we're lucky, you know? And he had his spat. And I was from the 70s. You know, I grew up, you know, when we were kids, it was pot. Well, it's much more than pot now. And that's what we gotta do. We have to focus more on mental health and helping people instead of putting them in jail. Thank you.
Next question.
What initiatives would you propose to help the bays and local waterways, which are plagued nearly every year by algae blooms and brown tides?
Alex, go first.
Okay. Thank you very much. As you know, back in 1985 when we had the brown tide, it was a citizens organization that stepped up to the plate. The county health department led the way. The BT camp, brown tide, comprehensive and assessment and management plan. With that, we started meeting as citizens and we were able to get the Conic Estuary in the estuary program. That's what got me here with you tonight. It got me as a highway superintendent. We need to do a multifaceted approach. It's not just sewage systems and sanitary systems. We need to be able to dredge our bays, to do maintenance to them. Unfortunately, the development is so much that it's becoming unfeasible to put the dredge spoils anywhere, and that it makes the cost go crazy. The sediment flux in the mucky soils is terrible. As the plankton dies, it falls to the bottom with other organisms and it dissolves all the oxygen. That's why we need to be able to do some maintenance dredging to encourage flushing. I went to a civic board meeting with some other smart people. One of my ideas where the problem was Quantuck Bay. And I suggested that perhaps we try to put a pipe, large, 72-inch diameter, out into Quantuck Bay from the ocean and try to start flushing the water. We need to do more than just the sanitary system. Agriculture still is a big impact. It used to be aldicar, what they called tannic. Now it's nitrogen. We live in a glacial area, alluvial sands. We depend on the upper portions of the aquifer. That water is connected to the bays and then in the ocean. We need to do a multi-pronged approach, try to promote circulation. Yes, in certain areas where there is a low table, where the groundwater is very shallow, yes, then we should invest in sanitary systems that are better. But when you get into the upland area, as that water migrates down, it gets to a point where it migrates under the bay and goes out to the ocean. So putting everybody in a new sanitary system may not be the right thing to do. But we can't just depend on one thing, because what you hear now is sanitary systems. Well, some of the people that are saying this are the ones that have these little research things at Stony Brook and stuff like that. Sometimes you got to look at it in a multifaceted way and go. We need, down south, they have money, they spend it, and they're trying to clean it up. Louisiana, and Texas, down in the Chesapeake.
I think I'll open with something on Stony Brook, Southampton, because I feel so blessed to have the SOMAS here in our community, the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. And Andy, Captain Andy, is very involved there. I got to see Dr. Gobler's State of the Bay. If you missed it, go watch it on CTV. It's really, they're doing so much incredible cutting-edge work to restore the health of our bays, from macroalgae to designing new sanitary systems. And a lot of what they're doing is actually working. And this is the first time in Shinnecock Bay in, I think, 12 years that we didn't have a brown tide incident. That's remarkable. So I'm hoping that some of the things we're doing, I've been involved with land preservation for a long time, and that seemed like a good way to reduce contaminants in the aquifers, to limit development over the aquifer. The problem we've been having, and you all know it, unless you've been like under a rock, you all know that we've sort of figured out that our sanitary systems, when we flush our toilet, that nitrogen, normally in nature, you don't bury it in a hole in the ground, right? Animals, defecate. Nature has a process, and the nitrogen gets fixed by plants. Nitrogen gas goes off into the atmosphere. What we've done is we've injected that nitrogen directly into our water table. We never gave nature the opportunity. We designed sanitary systems to keep pathogens away from human beings. That's what they did. Quickly get it out of your house, into a hole in the ground, get the water back into the water table as fast as possible. And that's what we've done for a long, long time. Now we find that that's really a problem, because that nitrogen reaches the bays, and it leads to algal growths, and the algae grows like crazy, blocks out the sunlight from the bottom clams where our marine fisheries depend. It decomposes and pulls oxygen out of the water column. Some of the algae itself is toxic. So we've seen shellfish beds that have been closed all over the place. So we are moving really quickly. I'm blessed. I have an engineer on the town board with me, John Bouvier, who's in the back. Brilliant guy. I found out the other day my son's looking at engineering schools. John turned down MIT. You don't meet a lot of people who reject MIT. So John has been really a real leader on the water, cleaning up our water on all different levels. And he led the fight to get a rebate program so that people can get paid to put in these new sanitary systems that remove nitrogen. And we're blessed. Assemblyman Thiel got us the ability to use 20% of our CPF money to do water quality projects. We're doing them all over the place. West Hampton, Sag Harbor, here in the village, right down the road here. We gave a significant grant so they can deal with road runoff before it gets to Lake Agawam. We're doing some really, really innovative things with that money. So I'm getting the stop sign. I could talk about water quality all day, so it's really important. Thank you.
Red card?
There has to be a thinking that things change. We're in a glacial period. It's in an interglacial period. It's a natural warming of the environment. Sea level is rising. There's two different things. There's weather and there's climate. Weather is what we get when we get these heavy rains. Climate is what we think we're going to get. And that's what's happening. That's what I've tried to tell the town in the past. These rainstorms now, since last summer, are intense. A few weeks ago, we had the 2 weekends of rain. It was kind of nice. It was kind of mellow. Wasn't a big problem. That was 1.5 inches of rain in 2 days. Town can handle that. The Friday before that, when we had those 2 big microbursts, 40 minutes we had 1.5 inches of rain. When you have that rain, you have runoff. You have sedimentation going into the bays. You have nutrients. You have scat from wildlife. You have to look at the big picture. The environment isn't a steady state. It is changing, and we need to realize that. What I'm finding in the coastal communities, we don't have sewers. We have leaching pools. We're finding along the coastal areas that the groundwater is up historically high, close to the surface. And these leaching pools that the town depends on, now the groundwater is up inside them. They don't perk when the water's up inside them. They depend on having dry ground underneath for it to percolate and go through and absorb some of the nutrients. So where's that water go? It goes into the surface, goes into the ponds, into the creeks, into the wetlands, carrying all kinds of sediments that are choking the bottom, that's causing soluble oxygen to go down. Thank you.
Next question.
How would you ensure that drinking water is safe for residents in Southampton?
Jay goes first.
So the question is, how would I ensure that drinking water is safe? So again, we're doing everything we can to protect water quality, preserving recharge areas that are important. Lots of woodlands. We've had a number of problems with contaminants, the emerging contaminants in drinking water. They seem to be coming from fire suppression foam that was used years ago, these perfluorinated compounds. It's not the first time we've had water contamination from industrial pollutants. We had MTBE years ago, which was a gasoline additive. We've had, agricultural agrochemicals, temic, aldecarbon, things like that. Most of our water is provided by Suffolk County Water Authority in most areas, except for Hampton Bays, where the town is actually involved in the provision of public water. When these chemicals are detected, filtration is put in. That's what we did in Hampton Bays. We spent $1 million on putting in granular activated carbon filtration that is removing all of these perfluorinated compounds. And we're doing other initiatives. I was at a meeting last night in Hampton Bays. It was an informational meeting with residents talking about what we're going to do where we have we had discolored water from too much iron and manganese, and we're taking steps with the town board to install iron filtration there too. So we're going to continue an aggressive program to protect our aquifer. We live on top of our aquifer. It's unfortunate when you hear that damage is done, whether it's from nitrogen or whether it's from some of these toxic chemicals. The more we can do to preserve land, to protect it from potential contamination, I think is important. So I'm going to continue the town board's agenda in preserving our open spaces. And, some damage has been done. We've been conducting a town-wide study of pollutants in our aquifer, an exhaustive study using a firm called Toxics Targeting. And we're looking at where to look for all these chemicals, even ones that may have not been found. We're looking at all the databases to see what spills that have been reported, so we can do aggressive water testing. And you may have been following with the sand mines. We had a problem with a particular sand mine. We had high levels of manganese in the water underneath that sand mine, and we have been working on legislation. Councilman Scalera has been sponsoring legislation that would allow us to monitor the groundwater, require groundwater monitoring around all the sand mines. Again, I've mentioned Assemblyman Thiel several times. He also endorsed me in this primary. He's the head of the Independence Party as well as being our assemblyman. But he passed the legislation that allows us to have a groundwater monitoring program. So I want to thank him for that.
Alex?
I don't know if you know, I come from a family of well drillers. I was a licensed well driller, did environmental sampling, providing water, testing it. We have 3 water units here on Long Island, and we use mostly the top, the upper glacial. There is a lower unit called the Magathy, and then there's a Rotarian clay area, and then there's the deepest aquifer, the Lloyd. We don't go into the Magathy because we're afraid of pulling up salt water. That's why we have to concentrate on taking our water from the upper glacier. The upper glacier has historically, if you look west, has always been susceptible to nitrogen and other pollutants. So we need to do the best we can. I have to take issue with him on the Hampton Bays Water District. I watched some of the meetings, and it was a debacle. The commissioners that I don't even think they know that they're commissioners, and the water district superintendent and the deputy superintendent sitting at the other side in the audience. You have to spend money for clean water. If you have water running through pipes and they're 70, 80 years old, you have to replace them. You have to. I heard one comment when there was a heated exchange with the Suffolk County Water Authority and to the supervisor, and the supervisor said, "No one brought this to my attention." Really? You're a commissioner of the water district. I've worked on numerous water districts from Montauk to Nassau County, and I've never met a water commissioner that wasn't into it like you couldn't believe. You know the water towers and big white things that stand up in the air? They're important. You need to spend money on them. You can't wait till it's too late. I'm truly sad. They undermined the public confidence in the Hampton Bays Water District because of their inaction and their political posturing. And it's sad. You won't see that from me. I'll be there. I've been talking with the water district members. I have been doing some work over the years in the water district. And I do have some ideas to try to help make it a little bit better. But my God, you're a water commissioner. You're not a town board member when you're talking about the water district. You need to have a capital plan and you need to follow it. You need to be protective of the public. Thank you very much.
I'm going to respond.
Good.
Easy to throw stones, Alex.
Sure.
So the Hampton Bays Water District, it's a good group of men and women there who work there, and it has been part of that community for a long time. We did have a lot of problems. We had a lot of problems last year with low water pressure. We had a lot of problems with discolored water, and people didn't feel they could drink the water. They were concerned. They weren't getting their questions answered, and we did have to step in. I'm told by the members of the water district that no supervisor has ever shown any interest in that place. I'm there quite often. I was on the phone with Robbie King today. They like it, actually, that the town is engaged now with the water district in helping them solve problems. These things weren't brought to the town board's attention. We have tanks that need to be resurfaced. We've had the iron and manganese problem has gone on for years and years and years, unaddressed. We're fixing it. We're taking the steps to make sure there's adequate pressure. It's not acceptable when people, on their second story can't take showers all summer because there's just inadequate pressure. It's not good when you have hotels in Hampton Bays like the Hampton Maid that had, guests were complaining because they couldn't take showers, so the water was coming out brown. It's hard to rent rooms when you have a situation like that. We are deeply engaged, and we're doing a capital program. We're actually doing it. We hired a firm to do a 10-year capital program, analyze the entire system. We're looking for lead elements in the system to make sure we have no problems there. We're looking at the integrity of the water mains. No study like this has ever been done. We're looking at capacity, comparing zoning in Hampton Bays today and in the future, and make sure that we have adequate well fields to be able to produce adequate volumes of water at adequate pressure to make sure that the residents have the water that they need. And we're doing a lot of public education. That meeting last night that was held, and it was very positive, was the town board's idea. Reach out to the public and help give them the information that they're asking for.
Time up.
But you waited until there was a fire.
Okay, next question, and this will be the last question.
This is an audience question. 9 times out of 10, the person I see pulled over for a traffic violation is Latino. What can the town supervisor do to ensure there is no bias in the police department or code enforcement?
Okay, Alex, you go first.
Well, the supervisor is quasi-police commissioner. He should have a good relationship with the chief of police, as he does. A lot of Latinos do not have driver's license, and that's a problem. You have to try to do some education. I'm for undocumented people getting a driver's license. At least they'll know the rules of the road. But, we're not giving them citizenship right yet. I think people, if they want to become a citizen, they should have that path. But I think they need to have a driver's license and understand the rules of the road. And then you got to make sure that you're just not targeting a minority. You can't do that. I don't know if that's the case. Right now, I'm trying to work on speeding issues. One of the biggest complaints I get from people is speeding in town. And we're trying to look at all the speeding tickets and try to figure out the enforcement rates and that, because that's the best way to stem speeding. But I hope it's not. I truly hope it's not that they're targeting poor Latino people. Sometimes they do drink and drive. It's kind of part of a culture. But I can't tell you if it's a targeted event on minorities. I hope it's not. Thank you.
So, that question, the 9 times out of 10 was somebody in the public's observation, so that's not necessarily a fact. Certainly, I would have a zero tolerance policy for any racial profiling within the police department. That would be met with immediate investigation and severe disciplinary action if that was occurring. That is not something that I nor any member of the town board would accept. A lot of our workforce is Latino. People, there may be Latinos who, or people they think they're Latino, because that's an assumption as well, but that get pulled over. But I haven't heard of any profiling within this police department. I'd be shocked personally if it was occurring, and it would completely be unacceptable to not only myself, but I think all members of the town board.
Thank you. You have time to each ask one question of the other. If you would like. Jay, would you like to ask a question of Alex?
I have no questions.
Alex, would you like to ask a question of Jay?
Jay, I see Mr. Kennedy is running for county executive. I know 2 years ago when you asked the voters of Southampton to elect you again for supervisor, you won, and then you immediately set a course to run for county comptroller. If Mr. Kennedy is victorious over Mr. Ballone, are you going to run again for county comptroller?
Well, it looks like somebody who's elected for highway superintendent is considering running for town supervisor, or are they not? So, so you're elected for a 4-year term, and you're only halfway through it, and you're looking for another job. So, so I had, I had
One person speaking
I
at
had
a
the
time.
honor to run for county controller. It's a fiscal position. I think I got a very strong fiscal record, and came almost very close to winning that race. The person I ran against is the current controller. It's very hard to beat an incumbent. I wasn't anticipating winning. I actually got closer than I thought. It was half a percentage point away. It took about 2 weeks to figure out whether I'd actually won or lost. John's a good man. I know John Kennedy. We served together. They asked him during that race, I was at the Newsday debate, and they said, you're running for controller, or you're going to run for county executive right after you get elected? And he said, he sort of dodged the question. He didn't rule it out, but he said, I'm running for controller. I'm running for controller. Of course, now he's running for county executive. It's obviously an important post. I've worked very closely with Steve Ballone. I consider him a friend. I think he's a good county executive. I support him. I wish him well, and I hope he wins. I plan to be right here as town supervisor. I love this job. Wake up every day, looking forward to going to work. I like to solve problems. I like to build consensus, and I think I'm delivering on the promises I made when I ran. It was flattering. It's my first experience running on a county-wide race. Not a lot of people get that opportunity to do that. I consider that a great honor to run in a county-wide race. You know how hard it is for an East End person to win a county-wide race? It's like unheard of, right? We've never had an East End county executive, and controllers countywide. It would have been a big deal to have somebody from the East End in a position like that. I got awfully close. I'm proud of that, but I do love being your town supervisor.
Okay, now we have a red card. This is your last red card.
I don't think he answered the question. I thought I was pretty clear. If Mr. Kennedy wins, are you going to run for county comptroller? It was kind of a simple question. You ran, I have my time, sir. You ran, you're a term-limited county legislator. How can you say you didn't run for a county's race?
Countywide.
The county legislator in part of the county legislature. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
A question.
I'm not looking to go to the county. I don't even know if I'll be successful in the primary. but I believe the candidate doesn't represent the values of the Independence Party. And as a voter, as a member of the Independence Party, I went out with others that helped me to get signatures so we could have this conversation. I'm tired of watching these elections time after time again, and the real issues aren't talked about. I don't dance around things. I try to answer a question. I try to be honorable. I try to do my job. I don't know if I'll be successful in the primary, but I have values. I'm a resident of this town, and I just wish he would answer the question. Thank you very much.
It's sort of a trick question. There is no election. There's no election, okay? If Kennedy wins, he becomes the county executive, the controller's seat gets vacant, the governor appoints the controller. No idea who the governor is going to appoint. There is no election, so I'm not running for controller. So, all right, it's pretty simple. And to clarify, I was a Suffolk County legislature representing the 2nd District, the one that Bridget Fleming represents. It wasn't a county-wide position. Yes, East End people do get elected in the East End districts, yes, but they very seldom get elected countywide. So, and in terms of the Independence Party picked me to be the candidate for the Independence Party. Mr. Greger was able to collect 100+ signatures so that he could force a primary, and here we are. We're having a debate for that primary for the I line. I'm on several other lines as well, including the Democratic line, and I hope you'll support me. If there's Independence people in the room, I'm sure there's a couple, I hope you'll come out and vote for me.
Okay, we're ready now for closing statements. And Jay, you give the first closing statement.
Well, I'm running for re-election on my record. I think the town is moving in the right direction. Things are going the way they should. The tax rate has been going down. That's what you want to see. And yes, you do want to see property values going up. It's our main investment is our home. And that's a good thing when property values go up, not a bad thing. Crime, major crime, has gone down significantly. 20% reduction last year in major crimes, and we're looking at another 10% reduction so far this year. Our credit rating went in the right direction, up to AAA. Opioid deaths were mentioned in the question. Yes, it's moving in the right direction. We have less opioid deaths. Employee morale, and I see the head of the Civil Service Employees Association here who is endorsing me in this primary. Employee morale is up. Brown tides, I mentioned, brown tides are down. That's moving in the right direction. Preserve lands, we're continuing to preserve lands, so we're improving water quality. And those are all, what's the wrong direction? Going back to one lane on County Road 39 is the wrong direction. You know what that would do to our local economy? It would destroy it. I can't think of anybody who would be out there saying, oh, get rid of the extra lane, let's go back to one lane. That's insane. That's insane. You want to shut down the whole East End? That's a great way to do it. That's the kind of ideas that are coming out of my opponent, Alex Greger. You know what you got with me? You got a supervisor with an open door, who listens, who works to build consensus, who keeps your property values high and works hard to keep your taxes low, who takes care of our senior citizens and our hardworking families. I ask you for another 2 years. Another 2 years. I'd like to continue to serve. I understand, that I'm a representative and a public servant. I take that very seriously. So thank you for your support.
Alex?
There he goes again, tax rate and taxes. As I said earlier, 2016 to 2019, he's increased spending $11.6 million. He's collected more money in taxes. We are getting taxed out of here. I didn't say rip up the lane and go back to signal lane. I just said in the beginning, they knew that it would be obsolete by the time it was finished. We need to have traffic lights. I'm not a professional politician, just a guy from the community that wants to be involved and try to help find issues. I don't like politics. I really don't like politicians. I don't like how the town has turned out. We're supposed to be a collective where we all work on each other's strengths and we ask each other's questions when we have something that's not involved. Ask some of the other elected officials. They'll tell you that they're being boxed out. The decisions are being made by 3 white men in a room. 2 of them aren't even elected. This guy'd like to be the county comptroller. He's looking for his next spot. I don't like the politics and some of the things that going on. Do you remember when he let Anna Throne Holtz have a TV set crew and tractor trailers to film a commercial in town hall? That's embarrassing. That undermines public confidence. That's terrible. How about the opening at Good Ground Park, just so Ms. Throne Holtz could have a photo op when she was trying to run for Congress? That's not right. That undermines people. These are decisions that are being made. Yeah, he has the other party lines because they make deals with the party leaders. And they box out people like Eileen Duffy, who just wanted to try and have something to say, and other candidates that I had on my petition. It's got to stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, and thank you, audience, for being here, and remember to vote on June 25th. Thank you.